I was 3 years into rebuilding my life. New apartment. New routine. Therapy twice a week. I'd started sleeping through the night without checking every lock. I was healing, then my doorbell rang on a Tuesday morning. No one was there. Just an envelope on my doormat. The same plain white kind as the first mysterious letter that led me to the secret house. My hands shook as I opened it. The handwriting was familiar, neat, precise. The same person who'd sent the first warning. He wasn't working alone. There's someone else. Someone is still free. Be careful. I called my investigator immediately. We'd worked together through all of this, the fake death, the trial, the discoveries. If anyone could help me figure out who sent these letters and what they meant, it was him. Sarah, he said, his voice careful. I think it's time I told you something I've suspected for a while. About who might have helped Mark, and who's been sending you these letters. We met at his office that afternoon. He had files spread across his desk, documents I'd never seen. I've been digging into Mark's background, he said. His family, his business associates, anyone who might have known about his plans or helped him execute them. He slid a photo across the desk. It was Mark's lawyer, the silver-haired defense attorney in the $3,000 suit who defended him at trial. The one who called Mark testifying the worst decision of his career, Richard Sullivan, the investigator said. Mark's defense attorney. But that's not all he was. He pulled out more documents. Financial records, corporate filings, partnership agreements. Richard Sullivan wasn't just Mark's lawyer. He was Mark's business partner in the LLC that owned the secret house. He'd helped Mark set up the offshore accounts. He'd notarized the forged mortgage documents with my signature. He'd been involved from the beginning. But why? I asked. Why would a successful lawyer risk everything to help Mark commit murder? The investigator pulled out one more document. A life insurance policy. But not on me, on Mark. Richard Sullivan was the beneficiary of a $5 million policy on Mark's life. A policy taken out 5 years ago, right when Mark started planning my murder. They had a pact, the investigator explained. Mark kills you, collects $2 million. Then, if anything ever went wrong and Mark got caught or needed to disappear, Richard would help him. And if Mark died or went to prison for life, Richard would collect $5 million and take care of the mistress and the baby. It was a backup plan to the backup plan. A conspiracy within a conspiracy, the investigator had been building a case for months. Quietly, carefully, he showed me email exchanges between Mark and Richard discussing the project and timeline adjustments, coded language. But the dates matched perfectly with the poisoning attempt and the brake tampering. He showed me bank records proving Richard had transferred money to the mechanic who tampered with my brakes. $50,000. Paid from one of the offshore accounts Richard had helped Mark establish. He showed me Richard's phone records. Calls to Mark the night before my hospital stay for food poisoning. Calls to Mark the morning of my planned brake failure. Calls to the mistress after my fake death. Before Mark was arrested, Richard Sullivan had been the puppet master. Mark was just the one willing to get his hands dirty. But there's something else, the investigator said, his expression darkening. Something that explains why he's been sending you these letters. He pulled out a visitor log from the prison where Mark was serving his life sentence. Richard Sullivan had visited Mark 3 times in the past year. Official visits. As his attorney, he had access. During the last visit 2 months ago, the investigator said, Mark told Richard something. We don't know what. But 3 days later, Richard hired a private investigator of his own to follow you. My stomach dropped. He's been watching you, Sarah, tracking your movements. And I think he's trying to decide whether you know too much, whether you're a threat to him. The letters weren't warnings to help me. They were tests. To see what I knew. To see if I'd figure out his involvement. And now that I had, I was in danger again. We need to catch him, I said. The same way we caught Mark. With evidence he can't deny. The investigator nodded. I've already contacted the FBI. Financial crimes, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice. Richard's looking at federal charges. But we need him on record. We need him to admit his involvement. We set up a meeting. I would wear a wire. I would confront Richard Sullivan in his office and get him to confess. It was dangerous. He was a lawyer. He knew how to avoid incriminating himself. But he also had an ego. And I was betting that ego would make him want to explain how clever he'd been. 2 days later, I walked into Richard Sullivan's law office on the 42nd floor of a downtown high-rise. He smiled when he saw me. That same confident smirk I'd seen in the courtroom. Sarah, he said warmly. What an unexpected surprise. Please, sit down. I sat across from him in his expensive leather chair. Floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. Framed law degrees on the wall. The picture of success. I got your letters, I said quietly. His smile didn't falter, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation. Letters? He asked. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean. The warnings, I pressed. Telling me Mark lied more. Telling me someone else is still free. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. You're clever, Sarah. I always told Mark he underestimated you. That was his first mistake. So you admit you sent them? I admit nothing, he said smoothly. But hypothetically, if someone wanted to warn you that the conspiracy was larger than you knew, that would be an act of mercy, wouldn't it? Mercy? I felt anger rising. You helped him try to kill me. Richard's smile widened. Allegedly. And good luck proving that. I was his attorney. Everything we discussed is protected by attorney-client privilege, not if you were an active participant in the crime. I shot back. He stood up, walking to the window. His back to me. You know what Mark's real mistake was? He said. He got emotional. The affair, the baby, the secret house. All of that was weakness. If he'd just stuck to the plan clean, simple, and traceable, you'd be dead and he'd be rich. My blood ran cold. He was admitting it. So you helped him plan it, I said, keeping my voice steady. I helped him refine it, Richard corrected. The poison was his idea, but the dosage calculation? That was me. Unfortunately, Mark couldn't follow simple instructions. Too little poison, you survived. Then he panicked and went with the brake tampering. Sloppy. He turned back to face me, but the real beauty of the plan? The part Mark never even knew about. The $5 million policy on his life. Win-win for me. If you died and he collected, I'd get a percentage for my help. If he got caught, I'd collect $5 million and disappear with his mistress and the baby myself. You were going to betray him, I whispered. I was going to survive, Richard said coldly. That's what intelligent people do. We adapt. We plan for contingencies, like sending me letters to see what I knew. His smile faded slightly. Like I said, clever. Yes. I needed to know if you'd figured out my involvement. And now I have my answer. He walked back to his desk, opened a drawer. My heart raced. Was he reaching for a weapon? Instead, he pulled out a checkbook. Here's what's going to happen, he said calmly. You're going to take this check for $500,000. You're going to sign an NDA. And you're going to disappear. New city, new name, new life. And if I don't? His eyes went cold. Then I'll finish what Mark started. But I won't make his mistakes. You'll just disappear. Nobody, no evidence, no trial. He slid the check across the desk. Choose wisely, Sarah. I stood up slowly, looking at the check. $500,000 to disappear. Then I looked up at him. I choose justice. His face changed. What? I reached up and tapped the small microphone hidden under my collar. Every word, Richard. They heard every single word. The office door burst open. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Richard Sullivan, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, financial crimes, and obstruction of justice. His face went white. That smug smile finally gone. As they handcuffed him, he looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. You were right about one thing, I said as they led him away. Intelligent people do adapt and plan for contingencies. I've been planning this for 2 months. And unlike you and Mark, I didn't make any mistakes. Richard Sullivan was convicted on all federal charges. The evidence from The Wire, combined with the financial records and communications, was overwhelming. His sentence, 35 years in federal prison. No parole. The mistress, hearing about Richard's betrayal and his plan to take the baby, agreed to testify against both men in exchange for a reduced sentence. She served 8 years and was released last month. Mark, hearing that Richard had tried to frame everything on him and planned to steal his mistress and child, provided additional testimony about Richard's involvement. Not that it helped his life sentence. Both men are in different maximum security prisons now. They'll never see the outside world again. People ask me if I ever feel safe now. If I ever stop looking over my shoulder. The truth? It took time, therapy, support from friends and family I'd reconnected with, learning to trust again, learning to trust myself. But yes, I sleep through the night now. I don't check the locks twice. I've started dating again, carefully, With my eyes wide open, I learned something through all of this. Something important: trust your instincts. That voice in your head that says something's wrong? Listen to it. That gut feeling that makes you uncomfortable? Pay attention. I ignored mine for 5 years. And it almost cost me my life, but I survived. I'm still here. And now, help other people recognize the red flags I missed. I'm Sarah. And this is where my story ends. Mark is in prison for life. Richard is in prison for 35 years. The mistress served her time. Justice was served. But my life? It's just beginning. Subscribe if this series helped you see something you needed to see. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you're not paranoid. You're protecting yourself. Trust your instincts. They're trying to save your life.